Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Right on set.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at revolution.radio. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin, who had to reboot his computer. He'll be with us in a moment. And our producer is Thomas Becker, and our guests today are Kevin Trimmel and Ileana Ka. And let me tell you a little bit. Let's see what I have here. Well, Kevin's been with us for a while. He keeps coming on, and we love having him here. And he's in secret space program experiencer, and he's going to be bringing other people, and we're connecting the dots. But he had an experience where he was out taking a walk in Ontario, Canada, and a craft overhead, and he looked up and saw this grayish-white triangle-shaped craft, like a typical TR-3B, except it was grayish-white, not black, like the ones here in the United States. And to make a long story short, he found out later when he had some recall and regressions that he had been taken on board the ship, and he was part of this secret space program. And he did a public interview in June 2017, and just wonderful fellow Denny Hunt helped him track and get his timeline, they call it. And Tony Rodriguez helped him.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. How you doing?
Okay, good. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties myself. My computer was flashing. Literally, the screen on my laptop was flashing as you were talking. So I wasn't even sure if you could hear me. But thank you for the intro. Is it okay? Can I speak to that? Is it okay if I just jump right in and just speak to that
Go
for a
ahead and
second?
jump right in and tell us a little bit about that. And I just poke my head in to see what happened to Sasha. So you talk, and I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Just 2
Thank
seconds.
you.
Go ahead, take the talking stick. Okay.
Okay. I'll take the talking stick. I'll just speak for a moment. What's interesting about my experience is this happened in 2008, and I know in America and also in Europe, they had the black triangles, and they're quite large. And what I experienced when I was bicycling in southern Ontario, Canada, like a little small town called Cambridge. It's not really that, big deal of a town, but, it's a small town. And I was just bicycling along. And I was actually on my way to college, my first semester. And I took a break. And then all of a sudden, I look up, and this white triangle was above me, but it was a smaller triangle than Star 3D. And I think that's because so far I haven't really heard about people talking about these smaller white TR3s, and they're absolutely real. I mean, I have gotten a couple photos. They've come back. And there's a smaller white TR3, and I think they're used in the Commonwealth countries. And what I mean by Commonwealth is they're used in like Canada, England, India, Australia, New Zealand. Basically, the British Commonwealth countries. They are still very much a superpower, and they're also a space power. And do
you have any idea why they have a different color? Is that just for easy identification of the factions, or?
No. I really don't know why they have a smaller TR3, and I don't know why they chose white over black. But I have to speak honestly, because this thing has flown over me not only in 2008, but it also flew over me later on. It came back to my house, and that was in 2015. And it flew over my house again, and it flew right back. And I've seen this thing, and it's absolutely real. It's physical. It's a white TR3, and it's just another model. They have the TR3 has different models, and they use this to abduct people. Is it
responding to you? Is it responding to you? Or is it you in particular, or do you have a communication that's two-way with it?
I'm not sure. When in 2008, I was just bicycling, and I wasn't aware of this stuff really. And I just took a break and was drinking like a water bottle off my bicycle. And I looked up, and I thought a cloud had flown overhead. And I looked up, and this thing was already on top of me. Like, it was just right over the trees, hovering there, this little white triangle. And by little, I mean like 75 feet by 75 feet by 75 feet. That's my estimation. I've been really thinking on this, like going back in my memory, because it's 10 years now. It's 2018, right. And this happened in 2008, and it's been 10 years. I've really thought about this and meditated on this. And it's not as large as the black triangle, but it's a smaller scaled down version. And what I've been kind of coming up with my mind is I think this has to do with different factions. And I know Elena can also speak to these ICC factions where they have different programs running, and they have different craft. And in America, the black TR3, which is huge, it's like 300 feet by 300 feet by 300 feet at least. It's a massive triangle, and it's black. And this one was smaller and white, But when it flew up, when I looked up, I could see a little bubble over the front of the triangle, and it definitely had a cockpit. And I also have recalls of being in there in the TR3, but it's much smaller. It's because they have the anti-grav thing, which is actually probably electrogravitic, and it's a smaller white thing. And that's what picked me up, and it brought me to the moon and the Arctic and Mars, and we can get into that later. But anyways, sorry, I should probably stop right there. Sorry, I just jumped right in.
That's great. No, I love it because I was on a craft in the late 90s, and it was probably about, it was more like a UFO-shaped craft, the typical. And it was about 30 to 35 feet. It took up, around. And then I had one on my deck, like hovering above my deck. And I was trying to put that to scale. Now, my deck is about 35 by 30. And this thing's just filled up the front part of it. And it wasn't round. It was more like it looked like a sport model car almost. So it blew my mind. And it was hovering about 5 to 10 feet off of the deck. And so I was just talking to my girlfriend, and we were doing Google Earth. I said, there's my deck. And it was like it parked when it was hovering. And I've seen this before when I was in Honolulu. So they have craft of all sizes. So that thing was, I'd say that was about the size of a small stretch limousine. And it parked itself hovering on my deck in broad daylight. And when you say
Kevin, the reason I was asking about why it was, whether it was responding to you or not, because Gus, this machine that appeared on our deck, seems to be responding directly to Janet, back and forth. They're communicating, and I just wondered if that's why I asked that question.
That is a really good question. There's another gentleman. I did a roundtable with a man by the name of Will Glover, and he has since we did a roundtable, me and Tony and Denny Hunt, we did a roundtable. I think back in September of 2017, and we've been corresponding. And he's had craft fly over him, and he said the same thing. And I wasn't even aware of this, until recently, when he said, hey, by the way, these craft that fly over you might actually be responding to you in a psychic sense. But he said it has to do with AI. Like, he says that there's still people aboard, but there's also an AI component where the craft is zoning in on people, but this has to do with an artificial intelligence.
Right, and the one that I communicated with, and then my friend worked with Gus, and Gus is one of the delivery craft from the 47 Roswell incident, and there were actually 5 craft delivered in 5 major locations to the 5 major powers of the planet that first week in July, kind of like a Trojan horse. So anyway, I started interviewing her.
What does Gus stand for, honey?
Galaxy Universal something Galaxy Universal Gus system, or I don't know. I'll have to ask her again. I forget what Gus stands for. Sorry for that. I don't have it in my head. But Galactic or Galaxy Universal Shuttle. That's it. Universal Shuttle. It's a shuttlecraft. It's a shuttlecraft. So what was I going to say about Gus? Oh, so Gus talked to me. I said, what kind of beings are on the craft? He said, oh, no. I am the craft. So he was independent. He can come and go as he chooses. But that's not to say that sometimes it isn't both on there. But he seemed to have some kind of karmic relationship with me, and he explained to my friend Teresa that he had chosen to incarnate as this vehicle. It's just another form that he could incarnate in. So that was something I'd never heard before. Okay, so you were saying that Will Glover thought that it might be, you might have some kind of relationship with it, if it keeps coming.
Yeah. Will was saying, and I mean, this is recent. I mean, this is just a couple months ago that him and I connected, and already had these experiences prior to that. But he did say, he's like, the reason why this like small white triangle is flying over your house is because there's an artificial intelligence that knows you from the program. And he was saying that it's actually a kind of drone that picks you up and is like a middleman. You know what I mean? Like sorry. You know what I mean? Like it, like it kind of picks you up and you see the craft.
Uber.
And,
it's your Uber.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the Uber. Because
it's your avatar. It's basically your avatar, kind of.
It's a transport. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a transport. And on that note, I hope Elena is in this conversation. Are you there, Elena?
Yeah, hi, Elena.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Okay, good. Well, Elena, just to take things like a step further, right? Aside from the Uber, the glorified Uber white tier 3 or whatever, Elena, if we want to really jump into the nitty gritty here, I remember her as an instructor in the program on Mars. If we would just want to, aside from the craft, if we just want to jump ahead here for a second, like Elena, I had this recall for years. I'm talking like 3-4 years back, like 2013, 2014. And I had never come across Elena ever before. And then in 2017, I did come across Elena, and I had this recurring dream where we're being tested in the pool of water on Mars. They were testing the O positives versus the O negatives. And I absolutely remember Elena. She was an instructor, and she was teaching these swimming lessons in a pool of water. But it was weird because imagine a teacher where you're expected to be psychic and she doesn't speak, but she's looking at you. And she kind of sends you these like downloads because she's trying to prepare you. I guess a part of it was endurance, and they were a side program was they're just testing O positive versus O negative. They use both, by the way. They absolutely use both blood types for different things, but they're also teaching people to become empathic, because the empathic ones would understand what like Elena was saying, except she wasn't speaking. So imagine like a swimming instructor that is standing on the edge of the pool, and she gets you to jump in the water, but she doesn't speak. She's just glaring at you, and she's sending you the information. So you have to understand, in order to survive in that kind of situation, you have to lock eyes with the person. So what it actually was they were just teaching us how to be empathic, like fully, in terms of, receiving a download from someone that makes eye contact, and the sensation is you're being pulled into their eyes. They send you information. They tell you what to do, and you have to be very receptive. And a lot of the people that drowned in that scenario, they were not receptive, and that has to do with mental blocks. And I know this sounds strange, but just to get really into it, people with more masculine personality types, it's hard to talk about because of the programming in our society with like gender, right? But there was males that were more feminine, and there was females that were more masculine. And in order to be an empath, you had to be more receptive. So you actually had to be kind of feminine in your energy. And I am more feminine, even though I'm very masculine in terms of my body. You have to be very feminine in the sense of being receptive, like willing to lock eyes with someone and kind of receive this download. And that's how someone like an Elena, an instructor in the program, taught you how to be empathic. And that's...
Wait a minute. Wait. This is... there's it's bizarre. You assumed that she had your welfare at heart. Is that right?
But I didn't have his welfare at heart.
She was just telling us how to get through the program. It was like a video game, and she was like the one that was telling us how to control the program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was a ruthless instructor. I have more of masculine energy. I'm in female form, and yes, I'm female, but I have very masculine type energy in how I do things and why. So there's always a calculation in what I do and how I do it and why I do it. There's always a purpose. I never don't have a purpose. There's always some kind of a plan, some kind of a thought into what I do and why I do it. So it's the same style that I trained them. They got instructions, and what I wanted them to do is basically activate their life force energy and float, be buoyant above the water so they wouldn't sink. So you had to psychically, energetically hold your body like electromagnetic and anti-gravity. You literally had to float above the water and not drown. You wouldn't just swim in the water. That wasn't the purpose. I wasn't teaching them how to swim. They already knew how to swim. I was trying to teach them how to stay buoyant above their water, like levitate and float above their water in their own personal chi. It's like chi energy, chi bubble. If you can't float above the water, you drown, because this pool had certain type of a gravity force to it. So if you tried to just swim basically like you would normal water, you drown. So you had to levitate yourself and keep yourself above the water psionically. That's the purpose. And if you could do that, you had strong psychic and empathic abilities and you survived the test. If you didn't, you drowned. You were thrown into a regeneration tank to revive you. You had to go back to step 1 of the program and repeat everything again until you graduate.
Wow.
So what was graduation? What happened when you graduated? What was success?
Well, you move on. You move on to higher levels of the program and you get to live. If you don't succeed, you're demoted and you basically end up in the lower ranks of the secret space programs, and you don't ever get the interesting missions. You don't ever get to go anywhere. You're just stuck behind a desk on some base. You don't get anything exciting
Elena,
or anything good.
Don't you feel the pain of these people that are drowning if you're empathetic with them?
Yeah, I can't feel the pain, but I block that stuff out so I don't feel them. That's the purpose. I wasn't supposed to feel their pain, the guilt, the shame. I was just there as a drill sergeant, cold as ice and not very caring, because I knew even though they drown, they don't truly die. They're just thrown into the regeneration tanks in either green or blue goo to be revived, like nothing ever happened to them. They feel the pain.
Oh, okay, far out. Thank you.
Yeah, that's basically how these programs on Mars work. I don't call it the interplanetary corporate conglomerate anymore because I've done further hypnosis regression on myself, and it's called the planetary corporations.
Planetary corporations.
She's right. She's right, by the way. You don't exactly die. When you fail, they just bring you back. It's it's a whole other thing, but yeah.
But isn't that painful and frightening? I mean, it's like, I'm drowning, and I certainly wouldn't enjoy it. It wouldn't be my idea of a vacation.
But the thing is, when you're put into these programs, you're not there for your personal enjoyment and personal pleasure time. You feel the pain, you feel the fear, you feel everything amplified, and they don't care what you feel, really. You're there for specific jobs and missions, and that's what you do. If you die or if you're close to death, they revive you through their regeneration tanks, holographic medical pods, portable Meditech units. They have so much technology, they could literally bring you back from the dead. You've died, and they can literally pull your soul back into your body. So they don't care about your pain or your fear. They don't. You're there. You're an asset. You're their property for as long as you're there. Not truly a slave, not a slave, and not a sex worker or sex labor, but you're an asset. you're like a military asset, except it's a little worse than that. You don't really have too much freedom. You have some leisure time, downtime once you've completed your mission to perfection or whatnot. There's a lot of competition in these programs. So, but you're an asset. You're property of the planetary corporations for as long as you work on their basis. Or
so
planetary
has everybody agreed to do this?
Oh, you don't have to agree. It can be done against your will. You don't have to agree to anything.
Then you're a slave.
Yeah. Thank you. No. Thank you, Elena. Yes, she said it right there. You don't agree.
But you're not a slave. That's different. Slaves are treated worse than assets.
You can't say no.
They don't care. No. They don't care about whether you say no or yes to them. They take you. They kidnap you. They abduct you. You don't have to say. Yeah. But you're not a slave.
It's called a slave.
No,
you are. You can't leave.
No, there's degrees of what slavery in these programs, how they think about it. Slave gets beaten, slave gets raped, slave gets other things done to them. But an asset is not necessarily raped, is not necessarily beaten or mistreated as much as a slave. So to these programs, there's a difference to them. What's truly a slave and what's an asset?
Absolutely. They kind of trick you. They will sell you like almost like a sales pitch, but because they have all this advanced technology, they already abducted you in the craft, right? You're on board with them. They might even have some hybrids or some actual ETs around them, like military people might actually have some Greys or whatever, or some Nordics around them. And they're trying to tell you, hey, do you want to do like a program where you get to do this or you get to do that? And either you're really scared, so you agree anyway, or you believe what they're saying. You're like, yeah, I want to do that. But either way, can you imagine actually being taken? Like you look up, there's a craft, and then boom, you're on board, and then you're around people with assault rifles, like military people, and then there's actual ETs around them as well, and then they suggest something to you. I mean, really, like, are you gonna say in that moment, no, fuck you? Sorry, but you know what I mean? You kind of go along with it because they intimidate you on a technical
Okay, but right now, these kidnappers are letting you rat on them. You're telling on them. How come they're letting you?
Honestly, and I said this last time, I think honestly they don't even believe that if people that they've kidnapped come forward, the average person is going to do anything about it. They are actually betting on the fact that 98% of the population doesn't care or doesn't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or they think we're crazies and insane and fakes and not telling the truth. So really, you can talk all you want about this. You really don't know any true secrets. They really don't give you any true secrets. You can talk about your experience in these programs. It's this grassroots disclosure. It's not like we're being taken seriously by anybody except maybe you guys and the grassroots movement.
Well, I think that it's getting recognized. I just talked to a person who was like a MyLabs thing, and she's over in Europe, and she went from where she was from, 10-hour drive. She's in Germany, and she asked for asylum, and they're taking her seriously about what's going on. And so there are some people that are saying, wait, it's just like the people believe in trafficking and child trafficking, and it's just one other aspect. It's like, yeah, we're being trafficked right off planet and used in a space program, and it doesn't matter if we're the house slave or the field slave. We're not at choice. If you're tricked, that's not the choice. You're being lied to. That's kind of like this whole paradigm of existence right now is a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie. But I think that this is getting some recognition. We had a lot of people last year at the MUFON, and they took it seriously. I agree they haven't up until now, but people are looking at it now, just like they jailed Bill Cosby now. I mean, things are changing.
Yeah, and Nexum.
Abuse. Yeah.
You don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's so we interview so many people and we see the correlations of what they're telling us and how we have multi witnesses to the kind of life that you are describing and others are describing, and the kind of evidence from witnesses starts adding up, and they're seeing the same stuff.
Mm-hmm. It adds up, yes. And I've had silver TR3. TR6 craft following me around, silver whitish gray type of craft. It's more like 100 feet in how big it is. And I've taken pictures of these things, and I have close to 50 something odd pictures of different craft following me around at night. And it seems typical, a pattern. Wow. It happens at night. It happens, that's where you're abducted. That's when these craft pick you up. And I've had, like, at 1 a.m., psychic message in my head, come, we're here. Can you take some pictures of us? We want you to post this. And I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to go outside. Come outside. This will be interesting for you. We're going to fly by. We're going to take different forms on. We're going to give you a light show. I'm like, okay, well, I come out and here it is. And all its silverish blue, white glory hanging there, hovering above my house. So I snap a few pics, and oh, goodness gracious, I have quite an album, and people have seen these things in my photos, and they're like, we've seen the same stuff. We photographed the same stuff. We've taken video. So I've amalgamated those other two people who've come forward, and I put it in a presentation. So it's out there on the internet, and boy, these craft look like light craft, but you can see the triangular shape of the TR3, 3Bs, 6s, and sometimes I've seen, like, the lights glowing, because there's different types of craft, these TR series.
Can you send us some of them so we can wait? Yeah. My turn, Sasha. Elena, can you send me some of those?
Yeah, I will send you the whole thing. It's on YouTube. I made it into a video. So yes.
Oh, wonderful. And do you present at conferences? I'd love to have you at our conference.
Usually no.
Usually no? That's okay. That was a good answer.
I do no, but if it's Skype, I'd be willing to do a day, one day.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'd probably just pop in and add your voice to this collective that we're gathering. But
yeah.
Okay, so we'll have you Skype in.
Yes.
Now, you had a question, but I had one more. What was I going to say? Okay, the ship. So these vehicles abduct.
Hey, sorry, my sound cut out for a second. I don't mean to.
Oh, you're there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my sound cut out for a second. I'm just saying that I just got back in. I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay. Well, we lost our producer, so I think we're still online, but he's been helping out too. So, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Sorry, my sound cut out for a second there. I'm sorry.
So they keep manifesting. You have multi-witnesses, but what is the essence of the message that they're conveying to you? What are they telling you? What, even if there's no words, what are you getting that you can share with us?
Well, psychically, they speak to me. It's from the ship. It's psychic communication when they come from the planetary corporations, and I know who it is and when they come. They say, well, you're getting ready to disclose something, this particular information. If you disclose this, we're going to permanently kidnap you off-world, take you off-planet, and never return you home. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard this before. I've heard your threats and blah, blah. I'm still going to disclose what I have on you or what else I know about these programs, because I'm tired of being threatened. I'm tired of being cajoled to return back to these programs. And I said, no deal. I ain't going back. You can't take me no more. I know what you do and how you do it. So I'm saying no to you. And, I've tried shamanic route. I've tried contract revocation. I've tried prayer. I've tried so many different spiritual modalities. Sometimes it actually works and they leave me alone for months or years. And then, oops, they reappear. When you're weak or least expected, that's when they take you back temporarily on missions. So when you're sick, when your power is down, when you're weak, It could be emotional trauma, it could be physical ailments, whatnot. When you're at your weakest, that is when they're back and can take you the most.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. I've noticed a pattern when you're very strong and you're resilient and you're like, no, you're not getting me again. I don't want this. So they can't really take you no more because you're on to their shenanigans. You know all their tricks and how they do it. And sometimes they change their tricks and how they approach you. And they try to tempt you with technology, advanced technology, healing you, whatnot. They try to give you these different little incentives to get you back into the programs, whether that's on a temporary or more of a permanent basis. They try to give you little incentives, and I'm like, I don't want anything you're offering me. Get lost. I have enough pictures of your craft. I have enough of you, so get lost.
Are they uniform, or are there some nice ones that try to help you out that are different than the others?
The secret space programs are not nice. I haven't met anybody who's nice. Everybody cares only for themselves to survive. Everybody just does their own thing, their own missions, whatnot. Certainly teammates will help you out. So you don't, if you're part of a 12-group team, of course they'll help you to make sure you get ahead in the team. But if you're not in their team, they're not going to go out of your way to help you in anything. You're on your own basically in these programs. You have your supervisors or one of your supervisor, and you follow orders and directions, and you do your thing. And if you did your job well, then you get some leisure time off on the base or whatnot. If you want to stay in the same job that you're in, you better do a good job so you're not transferred elsewhere off planet. So there's, as long as you're in a team, you have teammates doing projects, science projects, work, whatever that is, they will make sure that you don't lag behind and make sure the team works cohesively and they succeed. But outside of that, you're on your own. You have to be tough to survive this stuff.
So how did you get out? You said you're out now.
Well, officially, I was released from the permanent being at SSP Asset in 2014. So sometimes I'm still taken for little missions and whatnot when I'm sicker or whatnot. When I'm at my weakest, that's when they can still take me. But I've been working on myself energetically and getting stronger and healthier. So they don't really have a luxury of taking me because I'm very resistant and stubborn to any of their incentives. So I'm not taken permanently anymore into the program. That was over in 2014, but sometimes they still, I call it dog napping. They dog nap you.
Wow. And what kind of missions do you do?
Did they freak when you two got to, when you got together with Kevin? Did you get in trouble with them?
I never got in trouble with Kevin. I was just his trainer.
No, I mean that subsequently you talked on this plane as fellow disclosers.
I got in trouble.
Yes, Kevin got some.
Yeah.
Tell us. You tell.
Okay. Yes. Just to bring up this point, what happened was I did my first interview with Denny Hunt in June of 2017, and what happened was I didn't mention anyone else from my recall, so I didn't name names. I just talked about my own experiences without mentioning anyone. And after I did that interview, Elena, she added me on Facebook, and she decided to reach out to me, and she said, hey, we should probably have a conversation based on what I had said on my testimony. And then what happened was we had this like Skype date where like a week later we're like, okay, we're gonna on Wednesday night, I think this was like on June 14th, we're gonna talk this night. Okay, so I go to sleep that night, and then I have this dream, and we're doing audio, so I'm doing quotations here, but I had a dream where I heard a knock at my door, and this was, I guess, technically June 13th or whatever. And I opened the door, and there's two people standing outside of my door. And they come in my house and they're like, we need to ask you some questions. You sent her pictures of the craft. You were talking to Elena. What do you want to talk about? So it became this interrogation where it was a dream, I guess. But the point I'm trying to make is they can show up at your door. They can beam frequencies at you. They can make you basically do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, they can just beam frequencies at you, show up at your door, and they're doing what you want you to do. And they're asking me these questions. And I actually think at this point, there's these two people. It was a man and a woman. And I think they might have actually shown up that night and knocked on my door. And I think I did jump out of bed. And they came right into my living room. And they were asking me questions about Elena. And this is before our very first Skype conversation ever. Before that, it was just, she saw my first interview. She wanted to ask me a couple questions. We were going to have this Skype conversation. And sorry, I'm sorry if I sound a little mixed up, but it kind of trips me out that I had this weird interaction where I call it remote influencers, where people can show up and I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was an abduction. I don't know if they physically knocked on my door, because I know there's technology where they can beam a frequency at you and it makes you, it's almost like scopolamine, like the drug scopolamine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's called the devil's breath in South America. They've done this to people where they blow the devil's breath into a tourist's face. And they say to the tourist, download everything you have, and they will tell you their whole life story. Or they will also get the person to withdraw money from an ATM. This is called devil's breath or scopolamine. And it leaves you in a state where you don't even know what just happened. You're completely complacent. And what's scary about scopolamine, it's a real drug. People can look that up. In South America, it's the devil's breath. And literally, if you blow the devil's breath into someone's face, they're completely complacent in that moment. And you could literally get someone to shoot themselves in the face. That's how scary this drug is. That's why it's called the devil's breath, because you can literally get anyone to do whatever you want as long as you get it in them, whether you blow it in their face, get them to drink it, whatever. There's like a 30-minute or 1 hour window where you can literally get anyone to do whatever you want, and it could be a really bad thing. And it freaks me out that I think this might have been something that happened to me just a week after going public. I think I had some people show up at my door, and I think they knocked on the door, and based on my research on scopolamine, I think this might have been a real thing. And they interrogated me, and they wanted to know everything I knew about Elena. And all I had to really say was, well, I had this memory of her teaching me swimming lessons, and I was pretty innocent about it. And I think they got frustrated. It was a man and a woman, by the way. And I think they got frustrated eventually, and I think they just left after about an hour. But anyway, sorry, I digress. I'm sorry.
No, that's important. It was, I guess you had a strong emotional reaction to it because you just don't know. You don't know what happened, for sure.
Yeah, and what I had done is I had sent Kevin some photos of the craft, of the silver TR3B craft that I had taken. And this man and woman were asking Kevin, where are the pictures of that craft? You shouldn't be having these pictures of these craft. You shouldn't be talking to her. Kevin told me the woman had kind of like reddish hair and the man had grayish hair because they were in their, mid 40s, maybe 50s, right? Something like that, Kevin. You told me the descriptions of what they wore.
They were middle aged. The woman had glasses. Like, I remember little details like that. Like, the woman had glasses. The man had a beard. Absolutely. I remember how they looked.
Mm-hmm. And they had.
Were they trim or were they fat or were they skinny?
The woman, if if you want to get technical, absolutely. The woman had gray pants and a white dress shirt on, and she had glasses and short brown hair. And then the man had like a grayish kind of beard, but he kind of the top hair, like on his head, it was starting to get gray, but he had a little bit of red, and he had blue eyes, and he was pale, and he was bigger, and so he had like reddish kind of hair, I guess.
Yeah, and I remember the woman had like when I psychically read you, because I can psychically read people's minds and what events happen to them. The woman had like reddish brown hair, like a bob, shoulder length bob. So it wasn't totally brown, but it was reddish brown, sort of kind of. That's what I saw. Her I don't know her hair color. For me, that was the most vivid thing that I remembered seeing from Kevin's memory, and what they were asking him about me, which really surprised me, because I'm like, I sent him a few photos of craft. What's the big deal here? It's not like it's top secrets from these programs. It's just craft. So I'm like, why are these people interrogating him about me? And why would they even care about me? Because I've never met those two, ever, by the description. So they must have really didn't want him to talk to me. Because he knows something they don't want him saying in public, or to me, for that matter. Because this was a recorded conversation that we planned to release to the public, eventually, which we did.
Okay.
Yeah, and on that note, okay, go on. Sorry.
Just what I'm getting is that the two of you have created a coherent field that's way more powerful than either one of you alone. And this is like freaking them out. That's what I got.
Yeah, well, we're friends. We've become very good friends. And
yeah.
I remember Kevin from Mars as well. And we've talked about very deep things together. We actually did a show together, a roundtable with one of our other SSP friends, and that caused no amount of trouble for Kevin and me. If you want to describe that, Kevin, maybe just quickly, because it's that's the context of how we know each other.
Sure. Well, we did a couple shows after that, because I mean, if we really want to get into it here, there was another gentleman. He was in Australia, and he had reached out to me after I did my interview, and we were talking, and he's like, I can't go public. I'm a lawyer. I have a law practice. Like, I can't go public. But he's like, I really like your interview. And then I mentioned to him, like, well, I just did an interview with Elena, and I had this bad dream that I just, described. And this guy was like, oh my God, like, we were supposed to talk about a year prior, and he's like, I had the same dream, and he's an experiencer, absolutely, and he had the same interrogation, but he has a wife, he has kids, he has a law practice, so he had like this same dream a year prior, and he decided to not talk to Elena, and rightfully so, like, sorry, Elena, but
he did talk to me.
Okay. Well, let's not mention his name. Okay.
No.
I
don't remember his name, actually. That's
okay.
embarrassing.
Good. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, this is what really tripped me out. Just before, this is like a precursor to what I'm about to go into. But as a precursor, I was talking to another experiencer and letting him know what was going on with me, and he had the same experience a year prior because he was about to have a Skype call with Elena. And anyway, so this thing happened with me, and the thing is, what really trips me out is I was having a recall for 2 or 3 years prior to this, and the swimming lessons with the Qigong, and what Elena described earlier, where in these situations you have a couple people, they'll put like 20 or 30 people, like literally like what I remember, in a pool of water, but they already did these weird things, which I'm not going to get into now, but they did these weird things where they pair up 2 or 3 people, and these 2 or 3 people are more linked than the other people, and they're literally trying to prove survival of the fittest versus love, as strange as that sounds. So they try to bond people in these programs, and then they put them up with a bunch of strangers, and then they jump them in a pool. And what they're trying to prove is if you've been in a bonding situation with 2 or 3 or 4 individuals, are you going to protect them more if you're in a pool of water with 30 people drowning? Are you going to protect the people you know more than other people that are human that are drowning? Does this make sense that I'm saying? Like are you going to jump from like almost like a makeshift family unit that they created? And anyway, so that was the situation. But then another thing about this situation that I remember is what happens if the 3 or 4 people in your little family unit that they created drown and you're the only one? You almost have to be like adopted into another situation. So you literally, this is where they test not only your empath abilities to lock eyes with a person and be like, hey, I'm a human, I need help, but also they're drowning and they look at you and they're thinking, is his key level a little higher than our key level? Can he help us stay more afloat? Like if we're going to just talk about the pool situation here.
The usefulness of who you are.
Yeah, exactly. The usefulness. So they might bring in someone who has 2 life vests, like life preservers, and their life preservers are losing air, right? So they might actually. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make, if you haven't followed this yet, what I'm trying to say is that they were literally trying to test power levels versus survival dynamic and also family values. It was weird. It was like they did these little programs where they were trying to pair people up in an emotional, physical, almost sexual kind of way, and then they put these groups in a pool, and then they have these groups competing, and if your family drowns and you're by yourself, you want to be adopted into another family, they're gauging you on a survival dynamic. It was really weird. Honestly, I'm doing my best to describe it, and I don't even fully understand it. But it was weird. It was like people that were trying to survive, but there is also this weird love dynamic between different family units. And the point I'm trying to make is that at first, the family units excluded other groups. And then when other groups fell out and you were by yourself, you had to pair up with other people who were strangers. And but what they were trying to gauge was love versus power. And it was a weird experiment. And I'm sorry if that sounds really strange, but I'm just doing my best to describe this thing that happened.
Yeah, and that's what we got in trouble for in one of the interviews that we did with you, me, and Penny Bradley, another SSP experiencer. And we were talking about these dynamics, these power versus love dynamics in the family units, and about some of the how spirituality works in the secret space programs, or lack thereof, in some of these units. We were talking about sexual energy, how you raise your sexual energy with others in the group, the dynamic, who's more powerful, that you have to be on the same power level to be in these family units. And sometimes they put you into orgies to pair you up to find out if you're compatible emotionally and sexually. And after this roundtable 4-part series, Kevin was suddenly being harassed and threatened on Facebook, and I was being harassed and threatened through private emails. And we were like, did that interview really create that so much trouble just because you talked about spirituality and sexuality and whatnot and how these programs work? Well, apparently some people didn't like it. And they're trolls. These people were trolls. They're not normal people. Sometimes people are set off. Somebody is triggered by something they didn't like, and they're a troll. That's how their mentality is. So they attack others because they don't understand or like what you're talking about. So Kevin had to leave Facebook because he was being very harassed with weird messages. And
I'm still off Facebook after that. It was very real. It's unedited. It's raw. It's what we experienced, and for some people that triggered people. This notion that I guess because in the program they think that we're all like bad or something, like we're all under mind control, and we are under mind control in the program. But what's interesting is what we were talking about was that in those moments, in those survival kind of dynamic moments, there's still good people that try to literally keep someone afloat. Like that's what I remember. Like we were trying to keep people afloat in the pool, and because we knew we had more energy than they did. They were about to drown, and I could kick. Sorry. We have like 1 or 2 minutes. It's like amazing. We're running out of time. Okay, sorry. So let's begin to wrap this up. No, it's okay. We'll do this again. We definitely will do this again because we have just begun. But I just looked at the clock and it's like we're gonna have the music in like a minute. So let's wrap this up, and we can do this next week or in 2 weeks. I have some openings, so let's talk after we sign off. But go ahead. Okay. And kind of. You still have an hour to go. Oh, okay. No, it's a talk. No, sorry. I know we're coming up to break. My apologies. We can speak we're more about break. This. Yeah. Sorry. No, that's a good reminder. The end. It's not the end. Yeah, we decided. The break. Yeah, we decided on just 2 break. Okay. Well, I know the break's coming up, but why don't when we come back, Elena and I can. Why don't we try to speak to the fact that this spirituality within the SSP, we can kind of diffuse that because we got a lot of harassment. I mean, I'm still off Facebook because of that interview. But, okay, yes, we'll come back. That's coming up after the break. Okay, thank you. We'll see you in 5 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Halakas MD, Melanie Vrichton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a 5th dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitor's peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha, and we are back. I am Janet Kara Lessin, and we're on the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at revolution.radio. My host is Dr. Sasha Alec Lessin, producer Thomas Becker, and guest Elena Ka and Kevin Trimmel. And we're going to, in one moment, we're going to go back to our subject. We're talking about sexuality, consciousness, and the Secret Space Program. And the pool. We'll be revisiting all that in part 2. But before we get back there, I'd like to remind everybody to go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and please donate what you can. I know we just a couple days away from the end of the month. Matt Painter, what's our? Where are we in our?
We're $30 shy, so please donate. We got tonight and tomorrow.
Donate on this show. If you can make it on my show, that'd be great.
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
It was.
Yeah, that would be good. Give us some brownie points. Put a note that we donated during the Sacred Matrix and we enjoyed the show. We would love to get some positive feedback. Sasha, are you there? Thank you, Matt.
I'm here. I'm here indeed. And what we say in existential groups is that whoever has the most energy gets to say what's really coming out. And I get that right now it's Kevin. Yeah. What do you got to tell us about your experience?
Okay, wow. Thank you, Sasha. I've absolutely been inspired by I can't pronounce it. Existentialism?
Cool.
Yeah, so I can't pronounce the thing that I am. So that's neat. But yeah, I totally get like nihilism, existentialism, absolutely. I had a really cool philosophy teacher in high school. He taught us about that, and that was really neat. And basically, what he said was, the universe doesn't give a monkeys about you. You need to make your own space. And right, like the universe, it doesn't give a monkeys about you unless you do something to make the universe give a monkeys about you. Yes. So going back to what we were talking about before with this whole experiment in the pool with all the kids.
Not kids, grown-ups.
Well, sorry, I call them kids. I mean, we were young. I mean, we were 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, but these programs didn't touch children like that into the pools. So just to make that clear, we did not do these types of experiments on children.
Fair enough. Sorry. Elena, it's an interesting situation with Elena because she was one of my teachers in the program. And when you really look up to like a teacher, right, becoming friends with them after like high school or university, like that's a whole thing. That's a whole other thing. I'm really happy that I got to connect with Elena because I absolutely remember her from the program. And I think at that point she was in her 40 and back or her 60 and back. So she was, well established. And what's interesting is in the memory, she didn't even say anything to us. She was standing on the edge of the pool as an adult. And we're in the pool, a bunch of kids or like teenagers, I guess. And she was communicating exactly what you needed to do to survive and pass this test, but she wasn't speaking. And that's an important point I want to make. This is where things take another level, where you have someone that's locking eyes with you. And she was trying to teach us something called entrainment, empathically, where the sensation is if you lock eyes with the person and you're receptive and you open up, they will give you exactly what you need. If you lock eyes with them, they can get you through any situation. And that is actually what she was trying to convey to us. And at first, a lot of the people didn't realize that because they just got thrown into a cold pool of water and into a pool that they couldn't climb out of. So everyone was treading water, freaking out. And eventually it got to a point where, some people went under. And then other people were looking up at this woman, Elena, standing at the edge of the pool, just locking eyes with us, but she was beaming something at us. And she's trying to tell us that basically, if you channel your energy, and this is, and I could be wrong, but this is what I gathered from it, was if you imagine like a balloon of energy under your knees, basically under all your joints, so your elbows, your knees, your shoulders, if you imagine like a balloon of energy, and as you're in the water, it's like fluidic space. So you can sit back on the water. And because you're actually, a life force energy, you can literally channel your energy and be sitting on your own energy, almost like sitting on balloons under your knees, shoulders, under your butt. And you can like be floating in the water. And basically, as long as you're drawing breath, it just has to do with breathing. It has to do with ki. It has to do with breathing. You can literally fill up those balloons, and you can like float in water, basically as long as you can draw a breath. Now, obviously, you can't draw a breath indefinitely, because you will absolutely get dehydrated eventually, and you can't draw breath anymore. But for a long time, past like the normal point of exhaustion, people can draw breath and be floating on their own internal energy. And she was trying to convey this point to us as an instructor of the ICC. And on top of that, they also were testing blood types, which we were talking about before. And they had already gotten over the racism thing. So there were people of all different races in the pool. So black, Asian, white, different sexes, male, female. So it was beyond, putting like races as or genders against people. What it was just a bunch of young people, like 19, 20 years old, of mixed race, mixed gender, trying to tread water in a pool. So what they were trying to test was they did have some people that were O negative and O positive. And one of the redundancy training programs was trying to test if the O positive would react differently than the O negative. And I was just like used in the program, so I don't know if I'm official like to say the result, but from what I gathered was that a human is a human is a human, and didn't matter what your race was, what your gender was, what your blood type was, and everyone was trying to survive in the same way. And people, when they were able to create this energy bubble, they were actually helping other people. And it got to a point where, and this is what I remember, I was with 3 other people, and I wasn't creating enough energy. So eventually they had to let me go down. And that's where my memory ends. They had to let me go. I just wasn't creating enough energy. So I was actually like almost like a life raft. If someone's pulling the life raft down, eventually you have to just say like, okay, like you have to go down. Which I know sounds kind of extreme. But what I'm trying to say is that a human is a human is a human. And the survival dynamic is actually what makes us all equal. We all draw a breath, and it doesn't matter what your race is, your blood type, or your gender. If you draw a breath and you're a human, we all have this survival dynamic, and that's what they were trying to test. And I know it sounds ridiculous that maybe some people already get this, but that's what they were testing. They were literally testing blood types, races, and genders in a swimming pool, as bizarre as that sounds.
Yeah, and I was like...
Did anybody succeed? Did anybody... How long did this go on for? Nobody succeeded?
There was about 10 people that succeeded, and I was just looking for how long you could stay in your energy bubble. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Whoever stayed the most just passed and went to the next level of the program. It was basically an endurance test to test how are you capable of surviving in this type of situation. This type of situation, how clever are you? Can you think for yourself? And I never rifled through those people's memories. I just gave them psychic instructions for how to do things. I have the ability to literally look into somebody's soul, look into their memories. So I actually asked Kevin, can I review your memories of that pool experience? Because I remember some of it, but not all of it. So I actually went and looked into his memories. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. based on what I was seeing in his memory, I was able to deduce that this is just endurance strength testing. I didn't care. For me, I had my assignment given to compare blood type, compare gender, race. I'm like, I don't care about any of that. It's an endurance test. Whoever floats in that energy bubble the longest, they're the winners. They pass the test. They're the strongest. They get to move on to the next levels. The others who, didn't last the longest need more training in this level. The ones that drown need to go back a few steps and be trained further. So to me, it was not a bias test. It was not about gender, race, equality, or blood type. It was about who's the fittest of them all, like the show Survivor, literally.
Right.
But Kevin, when I empathize and put myself in your place and imagine somebody who I loved and trusted and respected subjecting me to that, I feel a part of me gets in touch with anger toward them, and the need that's fueling that anger is the need to be safe. And I just wonder, do you have any trace of anything like that?
That's a really good question. Okay, I do still have dreams where I'm in like a classroom and I'm arguing with the teacher, and it is Elena. And I think that is my own subconscious answering your question. Okay. But in my conscious mind, in my waking life, I think it's really cool that on an intellectual level, I get to become friends with one of my former teachers. And, she was under mind control. I was under mind control. It's like, can you really fully blame a sober person over someone that's, effed up on drugs versus their sober self? There comes a point where you have to have a certain level of empathy where you're just like, okay, that person was really messed up. And I was messed up too. So, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Sure. You guys both did the most growthful and intelligent things in your circumstances. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And the thing is, even though they drowned, they weren't really killed. They were put in regen tanks and they were fine after that. And some of them did ask for their memories to be wiped of that training experience. So sometimes these supervisors would actually, if these recruits asked for their memories to be wiped of that particular traumatic experience, it was wiped with just the lesson staying in the head, not the pain. The lesson you learned from the experience, but not the pain you experienced. That was removed from your brain. So they're not totally soulless instructors or supervisors, because they can wipe your memory if you ask for the trauma to go away, because that kind of stays in your head, in the back of your head, wherever you go on missions and whatnot, and you focus on the pain and the trauma, and you can't do your job right. So why would these supervisors want you that way? That's gotcha. You're not useful that way. So they just remember the sensation, the feeling, the memory of the pain. They wipe that. But you're left with the experience itself, the lesson, what you learned from it.
But so far what you're saying is that even though this didn't respect your right to say no and not be part of this and so forth, the generalizations that they made from this research are useful scientific stuff that can help everybody, so that even though it was at your expense, it sounds beneficent so far. What you learned by those experiments, that it doesn't matter what your race is, doesn't matter what your gender is, you're all human. That's so cool.
It's your ability to survive, and to this day, that training has stayed with me. I'll do whatever I have to survive within, not hurting anybody and not hurting myself, but the drive to survive is very strong, very clever. I'm very tough in how I handle different situations, and I use that cleverness that I was taught as an instructor. You have to do no matter what you have to do to get ahead and survive, not hurting anybody, but within what you have to work with, use as much as you can to get ahead as much as you can, even to this day, in clever ways. Get around the system in the most clever ways that you can. to get results that you need for whatever you're doing in your life. That basic training that they gave me has stayed with me to this day in this current life on Earth.
Very interesting. I have a friend that got washed out to sea. He was surfing and he miscalculated, and the tide took him out to sea, and so he was out there all night. He was doing that dead man's float because he was going to die, and the ETs came around him and gave him encouragement or something. He didn't know what they did exactly, but they came around him, and he survived all through the night. And then in the day when the tide came in, it brought him in, and he was tossed on shore. But it was a similar thing, you know. How do you stay in your own energy and not panic and not go under? And his was a real thing. If he would have died, he would have died for real. So
yeah, but the funny thing is
something you can learn.
Yeah, I don't know how to swim. I don't know how to swim.
That's what's so funny. Sorry, that's such a funny point, because she was just standing there as a psychic, and I think that's such a great detail that she wasn't in the water with us. We couldn't grab onto her. She was standing up 15 feet high. It was this carved out pool. It looked like I've been to Las Vegas, Red Rock Canyon, by Hoover Dam, and it looked like Nevada rock that had been flooded. You know, like the red rock. It wasn't like an exact pool, but it was like it had been filled up with water, and yeah, she was just standing on the edge of the pool, and I thought that was a cool detail, because when we talked, I didn't remember her ever being in the water. She was just standing off to the side.
Yeah.
But what you were saying, Janet, before, you know, okay, how do I put this? What they were trying to test was just, is a human, like, we take that for granted, and I really do believe it. A human is a human is a human. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if a sinking ship is happening and there's a bunch of white people on a sinking ship, and then Asian people come up, are they going to just let the white people drown, or are they going to just, in that moment, help them onto the boat? And for us, and I know your listeners and your crowd, you know, they're advanced enough to realize that what I'm saying is true. A human is a human is a human. Like, you know what I mean? But the elites were still trying to test this. And that's what's so bizarre about this experiment. And I had nightmares about this, where they were trying to grab people, and men, women of different, races, and they're trying to test both, gender, but also, racism in a survival dynamic. And also on top of that, because people of different race and different gender can have the same blood type, which obviously proves that a human is a human is a human. They already knew that. But what's so trippy is, on top of that, they were trying to test, you know what I mean? Like the consciousness, where, like, if a black person or a white person or Asian person, or if a man or a woman is drowning, will you react differently? Will you try to help them or not? It sounds ridiculous, but that is actually what they were trying to test.
Yeah, and as an instructor, I'm like, you're not messing with my training, and you're not messing with how I'm going to do this. And I said to my supervisors, I don't care what female, male, black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, East Indian, whatever, Japanese, I don't care what race they are. They're people, and this is a endurance, longevity test, survival of the fittest. Whoever is the strongest, that's the winner. This is as simple as it gets. So I was not looking at the blood type of this or that person. I was looking at their energy bubble, how well they can maintain that energy bubble and float above water and not drown. That's my parameters of the test. They gave me different parameters. I'm like, that's out the window. That's not going to help train them in any way. And based on their blood type, if they have O positive, they could still be weak. If they have O negative, they could still be tougher than the other buddy next door who's sinking. It's blood type. If you're sick, you're sick. It's not necessarily predisposition on your blood type. It can have something else, genetic defects in your system.
Wow.
So,
wow, you've confirmed the negative hypothesis that proves that love can overcome hate.
Well, of course. I mean, circumstances, it really depends on various circumstances. Somebody who hates somebody else the next moment can fall in love with them based on whatever situation they're in, or vice versa. So enemies can become friends and friends can become enemies. There's duality. There's a duality in this planet right now, and it's been here around. So black and white is not really black and white. There's gray in between. So I try to always keep an open mind and think outside the box, so I don't allow anybody's programming biases or influence manipulate me as the empath that I am in this human body right now. So I always try to be partial to people. I'm like, okay, well, that's your belief, and that's fine. I'm not going to rat you out based on this or that. And just because I don't agree with you, that doesn't mean we can't be friends or colleagues or whatnot. That's your opinion, and you're allowed to have it. And we can still find common ground to get along. Because we're all human. We're all on this planet. We are the same race. It doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are. We are the same people. We are the same race. We live on the same planet. As a species. We're one species of human.
Elena, I have a question. Speaking of different species, did you interact with extraterrestrial species, and if so, which ones?
Oh, yes. On the Mars basis, I saw reptilian-human hybrids. There was Nordics coming sometimes to borrow us from the planetary corporations to pull us on different missions. And that's about all the types that I worked with. And sometimes there's also Mars has a native population of Mars colonists, the original ones, and they're human. They're a species of human, but they're taller than us and they have a bit darker skin. So, and they're muscular. I
know the history of how they came to be? Like, are they originally connected to the humans on Earth or Anunnaki? Go ahead.
They were, I don't know whether they're Anunnaki or not, but they were planted at some point on Mars eons ago, and they've been there for a long time. So they even witnessed the partial destruction of Mars and went underground and survived. So I was sent out by my planetary corporation superiors to spy on them and displace them from their homes on these various orbital space station platforms that planetary corporations have. And the reason for this, they want them off planet so they can build more bases on Mars, get more territory. So they wanted me to be like in a, species in exchange program, even though it's the same species of human. They're human like us. They look like us, just slightly different. So they wanted me to, it's like a cultural exchange program. You're on Mars, get to know them. Hey, hi, what's your culture like? What are you like? Where you live? But the thing is, I had Neuralink implants that have video and audio, which can spy on these colonists and get their locations of their homes in order to take them off world forcefully and put them on orbital space platforms. So the planetary corporations can build more bases on Mars and get more territory. And I did this unknowingly. I didn't know that's why they sent me out there.
Did they resist? Did they resist? Were they successful? Are they still there?
Well, they're still there. They had no idea why I was even there for this cultural exchange program, and I had no idea. I'm just supposed to get to know these people. So, and later on, I've had some interviews with Denny Hunt, and I did a channeling session of my higher self with Carl Mollison as well. I was actually one of the first to try this out with Carl, and that's where I found out about this despicable stuff that I was unknowingly spying on these Mars colonists to displace them from their homes underground, because they have underground homes. So that's how I found this out, through the channeling of my higher self.
Greg, you know, from the old literature that I deal with, these people are people who fled after the Illyrians were attacked by the Dracos, and some of them had a beautiful on-surface and under-surface life, and they were joined by the Maldecans as the Death Star went by before it was blasted off, and the Maldecans went underground with them. But basically, when the comet that became Venus passed Mars, it sucked off a lot of the water on the surface and some of the air. That's what the old sort of stuff says about how those people got there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the fact that the planetary corporations want more bases on Mars and to display other natives that are there now, to me, that's despicable, and being used to do that, like unknowingly spy on them through these Neuralink implants. And basically, this telemetry data of me interacting with these folks gets back to the superiors on the Mars bases. When I found out about this through the channeling, I'm like, what else did these programs have me do? What else don't I know about? So I've been doing regression sessions. I've found out that I've had many ET lifetimes. I've been on bioships, living ships. I've been loaned out to the Nordics to repel the reptilian armada that was there in 2011 above Earth space, cloaked. These programs, secret space programs, the planetary corporations worked with the Solar Warden and the Nordics to stop this this reptilian armada. And Kevin has memories of that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Nordics.
We talked about that during that first conversation we had. We had like a 6-hour conversation after the events I described before. We had a 6-hour conversation. We decided to, on Elena's YouTube channel, to publicly make 40 minutes of a 6-hour conversation because we were getting to know each other and having recalls and that. But there was 40 minutes there that we felt was relevant to other people, and this has to do with the reptilian armada, and this happened in 2011. Absolutely. Some reptilian species attacked one of the colonies on Mars in the northern hemisphere in 2011. And they came in so fast and were just like a blitzkrieg, just right over the northern hemisphere of Mars, buzzing around like a bunch of bees. And Solar Warden, which is their job, scrambled, and they came from the moon, and they put up a little barrier between the Earth and Mars. And what they realized was these craft were flying so fast that if they were to engage them properly, they couldn't keep up. And they were kind of just sitting there kind of thinking like, shit, like, what do we do? If they were to engage us, they could fly circles around us. But one of the Nordic races that Solar Warden has been working with for quite a while, of course, they showed up, and there was a conference that was held. And I remember this conference, and I remember some of the people there, both the Solar Warden personnel, the certain ICC members, and also, there's certain points I don't want to talk about. There are other races there that some people might certain negative races. Okay, there were insectoids, there were reptilians. It was a confederacy of different beings. And the reason why I paused there, it's just, I know it's controversial to talk about. I'm not saying because certain reptilian and insectoids were present. I'm not saying they're good, by the way. I'm just saying they have a vested interest, which is different than what this faction was doing, if that makes sense. It's very complicated. If you there's a vested interest where you have certain Draco, reptilian, insectoid, mammalian species, and amphibian species as well, They're at this conference, and they have a long-term vested interest in the planet. And some subspecies showed up, and they were reptilian, and they showed up like insects, and they were just attacking a random base on Mars. And it was a very weird, controversial thing that happened in 2011.
Yeah, and I was on the Nordic. The Nordics showed up with their battle cruisers and their own armada, and they were trying to also make sure that none of the reptilian ships would sneak off from their armada and go to Earth and land on the planet. And they were like, the ICC, we can't have those reptilians land on Earth. We can't have this mass exodus suddenly show up on Earth. We can't have this. This is a secret. We can't have humans knowing that we're invaded by the reptilians. No, usually ICC doesn't work with Solar Warden because they don't have a very good relationship. But in this case, Solar Warden did give more advanced warp drives to Solar Warden ships. They retrofitted the ships so they could repel the reptilian ships. Absolutely. And the point she's trying to make is if they hadn't upgraded the Solar Warden craft, if these reptilian subspecies, if they had invaded Earth after Mars, our craft, even our advanced Tier 3s, could not keep up to them. So it would look like a joke if, imagine a really bad alien invasion movie where the humans are like in slow motion, right? They can't even keep up. So all the ICC did was just upgrade them to a point where they could keep up. It's not that they would necessarily win. It's just they could keep up. They could put on this big space battle in the sky. And this is right before 2012. And what the human Solar Warden population was concerned about was that if these craft showed up in our atmosphere, obviously, the cat would be out of the bag. People would realize that there's ETs, and we're actually doing the Nazi thing, which was to fight this big space battle, and people would just fall in line, and they could bring in a one world government, and now that could serve them in a sense. But what they realized was this invading force. This had nothing to do with the ICC. This had nothing to do with Solar Warden. So this invading force, it would actually be their worst nightmare, because they always thought that they could do this fake ET invasion, except this was a real ET invasion. Yeah. Heck
yeah, that's what freaked them out.
Yeah, I mean, ICC doesn't like to work with Nordics either, but when times get tough, you partner up with some of your acquaintances, so to speak, and their acquaintances. You partner up with your acquaintances, you put on your big boy hat, and you go to work to make sure that bigger enemy doesn't get Earth or Mars, because ICC considers Earth and Mars its territory. It's their space, their airspace. You come into our airspace, you're going to be blasted. If you want to invade us, we're going to battle the shit out of you, basically, and make sure you end up on the losing side of things. Call up as many acquaintances as you can to form a defensive line and get the enemy out of your airspace. That's what basically it was.
And they did that. You're right. They absolutely did that. And I think Solar Warden brought in some Nordics that they weren't necessarily proud of. I think there were some Pleiadians that actually came in. I know that's really controversial to say, but the Pleiades is a big star system. You don't just have Pleiadians as one star system. I mean, there's 400 blue dwarf stars in the Pleiades, and you got 7 different planets, and there's different factions. You got the Aldebarans that helped the Nazis, obviously, and then you got the Pleiaren group that reached out to Billy Meyer, and they're more pacifist. But anyway, you have at least 6 or 7 or 8 different Pleiadian groups that actively engage in our solar system, and one of them absolutely intervened. And I remember them. They were in blue jumpsuits with blonde hair.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they were there, and they were just saying, as funny as this sounds, they had the Earth humans meet up like almost like a family dinner, and like two families that hate each other. They had the ICC group, the Navy faction, the Air Force, all these people, and they're just like, okay, this is what you're going to do in order to survive. And if you don't do this, if you don't listen to us, then you're just going to die. As ridiculous as that sounds, that's basically what they said. And they're like, by the way, we're willing to help you. Like a bailout. Imagine like you're a bank and you need a bailout. So even if you're unhappy that with the fact that you just went bankrupt, they're like, okay, we're going to bail you out, but you need to do this, this, and this, and this. And that's what happened. It was a really one-sided negotiation, and I think they were actually pretty surprised that a bunch of Nordics showed up in blue jumpsuits and bailed them out right before 2012.
Yeah, and I was loaned out to those Nordics on their fleet as a communications officer to make sure that none of those reptilian ships, the cruiser ships, smaller ones, none of them landed on Earth, that the strays didn't get away from the main armada. So my task was to just monitor the screens and give out different tactical data between the different Nordic fleet ships. Just carry out data back and forth, send back and forth, and track reptilian ships, the smaller cruisers, the strays that really wanted to. Some of them disengaged from the fleet and tried to make this a little bit of a distraction to try to get other ships from the Nordic fleet to go chase them. And I was just making sure that that they wouldn't, go and land on Earth, that they'd stay above Earth space.
Wow. Ashtar Command to the rescue.
Yeah, that's everybody makes fun of Ashtar Command. That's
No, I don't make fun of it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, well, they actually sort of exist. It's one of that's. Yeah. I know it's been said that Ashtar Command is a psyop made by the CIA, but there are Nordics that look like what the Ashtar Command has been painted to portray. There's Nordics like that in blue uniform with white hair, blonde or white hair, and that's who I was assigned to. And I'm like, okay, I'll go as long as my planet stays safe and I get to go back to where I'm supposed to. I don't want to permanently be assigned to Ashtar Command. I'd rather prefer to be near Mars or Earth space. I never really did want to go anywhere else outside of this solar system. So I'm like, this is the agreement. I get loaned out on this condition. You don't permanently assign me to this group. They're not bad. They're not bad people, but I don't want to leave the solar system with them after this is all over. So that was the deal and what I agreed to, and it worked out. And Kevin was on Solar Wardenship, I believe, right?
Yeah, Elena, what you just described, absolutely. I'm not sure if it was a ship or a space station. I just remember a conference room that was very curved, and it could have been a space station because it was very large, very curved. And they were at this curved table, and literally the Ashtar Command, or I guess Ashtar, tall, blonde Nordic guy, like 8 feet tall, huge forehead, blue eyes, long blonde hair, blue jumpsuit, and he had an attaché, a female, and she had dark hair and green eyes, and also in a blue jumpsuit, and she was about 7 feet tall, so still very, very tall. And so this man and this woman that fit the Ashtar Command kind of like look, and they ran the conference. I mean, they were sitting at the head of the table. You had different people, different races, Earth, different races, but also other ETs. And they showed up. And the point I'm trying to make is that when these Nordics showed up, it was interesting that you had different Earth races, different factions, including Solar Warden, ICC, also different ET races, including there were some Greys, there were some Insectoids, there were other Nordic beings. There was like a whole conference of beings, like a UN, but different beings. And it's interesting that when these two showed up, these different factions that were arguing amongst themselves and had been trying to secretly, develop their own agendas, they all fell in line. It was almost like mom and dad showed up and told them, like, this is what's going to happen. And if you argue with us, then we're not going to help you. We're not going to bail you out because you're in a deficit. You're in a huge deficit here. You were playing this like stupid little game, and we can bail you out, but you're going to do this, 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 and this. And it's interesting. That was in 2011, right before 2012. So
and Kevin, remember my impudence? What I said to Ashtar?
Oh yeah. What did you call him a nickname? He didn't.
Yeah, I said, "Hey Ash," and he's like, "Take this seriously. This is almost a war. You need to treat me with more respect." And he put me in my place.
Right, because he didn't understand that she actually liked him, and humans, when we give a nickname, we like the person. When you're like, "Hey Ash," or "Hey Ty," or "Hey Jim," right? Like instead of James, you say, "Hey Jim." That's like a sign of affection. They didn't take it that way. They have a different sense of humor. They speak differently. They have different grammar. And when she said, "Hey Ash," he thought that he actually was offended. He thought that she didn't understand his name.
Yeah, and that I wasn't taking him seriously in what the situation was. I was just like, well, you're blonde, you're tall, you're blue-eyed, you're in this, interesting blue jumpsuit uniform. I'm like, "Hey, Ash, how are you?" And he's like, "Take this seriously. Sit back down. This is a serious meeting."
Were you sexually attracted to him?
No. I just have a weird sense of humor, and I assign nicknames to different people based on names.
I see.
So this is still a typical habit that I have. I still can't make a nickname for Kevin. It's a little hard with his name.
True. But she was just trying to be funny. She just said, "Hey Ash," like, because she was just trying to give him a nickname and just kind of break the ice. And they have, and I noticed this, like when I was in North Bay, when I actually encountered physically, like absolutely physically, without being in an altered state or anything, I just walked out of my hotel room and there was a MIB, an ET, hybrid Nordic extraterrestrial standing before me. And what I noticed is his grammar structure was totally different, and he didn't get my jokes. Like he really didn't. He didn't like even the little social niceties that were taught, like please and thank you. To them, they kind of like they look at you like you're speaking a foreign language. Mm-hmm. Like if you hold open a door, they might actually take offense for you opening a door for someone because they're like, "I was supposed to open the door. What are you doing?" Little things like that. Like it's a very awkward, weird situation. Even if they look human, they will speak differently. They'll act differently. And they will take offense even if you say please and thank you and give them a nickname.
Yeah. What I remember with Ashtar is like the greeting to say hi is just eye stare. You stare into their eyes, they stare into your eyes directly, and that's how you say hello. You don't verbally say hi, how are you, or shake a hand. The sign of respect for hello is just looking into each other's eyes and acknowledging each other. You're here, I'm here. We've said hello through our eye contact. Okay, we sit down to do business now. Get to it. That's how I remember that greeting going.
Did you see any people, any cross-species pollination, like people falling in love that were different species?
There wasn't any falling in love type of thing, but what the ICC does on its Mars basis, they have cybernetic labs, so they do breed different types of ET human hybrids. So some of them were there as support staff at that meeting. I remember that. Do
they do it via cloning or through
no, petri dish.
Or
literally
petri dish?
Yep, literally creating a new type of species, ET human hybrids. Not through cloning.
Not through cloning, but the extraction of the fluids and the eggs.
Yeah. Grow them in
I've heard about different experiencer contactee abductees that have been
they grow them.
Have sex with extraterrestrials.
Oh, no.
Have you ever heard of that?
No, we weren't allowed to have sex with the extraterrestrials. They grew the ET human hybrids in the regeneration tanks, in the goop. That's how they were grown. To
well, I had one experience where and it grossed me out when they had me having sex with a different species, and then I've heard other people. I always thought, well, that couldn't have been real, but
in the program, Elena's based on her observations. I've absolutely experienced that where they can pretty much grow anything they want in the tanks. So, for example, like when I had the experience with the raptor on Mars, it could have literally been a real life Jurassic Park situation where they literally took dinosaur DNA, cloned it, gave it a human brain, and just tested what would it be like if a human had a raptor body and was actually interacting with someone. But think about that for a second. I know this is really trippy, but think about that for a second. What if you, all of a sudden, your brain was in a raptor body and you had the claws and you had the teeth and you were actually a physical raptor, but it was your brain?
Or your soul consciousness.
Would you act differently if you could physically tear them up or eat them? You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds bizarre, but this is what they do. They will clone bodies, and they will put different brains in different bodies to see. They're trying to test what it is to be human. Is human the brain? Is it the body? Is it a blood type? Is it a gender? You know what I mean? Like that they're obsessed with what is it to be human? And if right now, Janet, we put your brain in a giant Godzilla creature, would you start killing people because you were angry, or would you just be like Janet, but you're, a Godzilla? You know what I mean?
Well, that's actually what they in the Life Between Lives literature by the certain institute, they regress people life between lives, and so that's what they, on a soul level, we're going down into different bodies. This is happening on a soul level, and so one fellow went into a Viking body, and during his life, he just killed, and then he was dead. He was in the process of reviewing it, and he had learned some high spiritual lesson from, killing. It's like he became enlightened, right? But going through the darkness, right through the dark. But he said that he really couldn't control his impulses, having been put into this body, which was very Viking, whatever that meant. He didn't know if it was cultural or genetic, but he had the basic impulses to kill a lot of people, to kill. So, what is it? Nature, nurture. What makes us kill, not kill? But I have a.
You said it. Sorry, you just said it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just imagine if it's not even a human brain. What if they have soul consciousness transfer technology on the Mars basis?
Right.
So they could literally take the essence of your soul and put it in another body. Whether that's a clone, a cyborg, or an organically grown new body from a petri dish in these tanks. They could just take your soul and put it into that body for whatever they need for a mission, then take you out of that body, take your soul and put it back into your sleeping body on Earth. And you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, Elena just said it right there. That's what I was getting at. Like, what they can do is there's soul catcher technology. They can transfer your soul into a clone body, and literally, like I know I use really silly metaphors, but like imagine you're like this guy, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a guy, like I'm a macho guy, and then they put you into like the body of like a 18-year-old, like little girl. What's interesting, what they've found is that people very much identify with the body. So that soul, that masculine, 40-year-old man, if he's an 18-year-old girl body, what trips them out is that the matter creates consciousness, but consciousness also creates matter. So there's this feedback loop that happens where even if you put a grown man, a 40 or 50-year-old man in a teenage girl body, he will start identifying with the teenage girl body. but they were trying to test the limits of that. And now imagine if you were to take that and now you're doing interspecies. So now you're putting it in a reptilian body, aside from gender, which there are 3 different genders, by the way. But imagine 3 different genders, interspecies, and they're mixing different consciousnesses in different bodies, in different genders, at different ages, because ageism in our society also exists. You know, someone that's 90 years old, they're like, oh, well, they're weak, they're dumb. Sorry, I'm sorry, but you know, ageism, like, oh, they're an old person, they're like 90-year-old man. Yeah, right. What if that 90-year-old man is actually an incredible martial art expert that actually can push people across the room because he's been studying ki energy for 50 years? He's a martial arts guru, and that stupid 18-year-old kid that walked into his, his dojo that wants to learn karate, that 90-year-old man just pushes him across the room with just a movement, and he doesn't even touch the guy. And I've seen that. I've actually seen actual ancient martial artists push people across the moon, across the room with their ki. Literally, I've seen old, like, amazing karate guys, and they're like 89 years old, and these young black belts come in, and these guys just push them across the room, and they barely touch them. So that's what they've been trying to test. They've been trying to test the human spirit. And that's the point that we've been trying to make in this whole conversation. I think what we're saying is they put humans into different bodies, into different timelines, into different whatever, and they're literally just doing the soul catcher thing, and they're literally trying to test the human spirit because for some reason we seem to have something that a lot of the other races don't in the galaxy and in the cosmos. There's something about Earth that's very special, and I'm not a religious person, so I'm not saying we're the chosen people, but all I'm saying is that there is something about the human spirit, and there's a weird reason why we have been under the dome, so to speak. They're keeping us as an experiment for a reason, because the universe is actually kind of like Star Wars. There's all these races that interact with each other, but for some reason they're keeping us under the dome.
But let's reschedule part 2 for another time, maybe next week or the following week. Thank you very much for being with us today, Elena, Kevin, Sasha, Dad Pager. Thank you very much. Love and blessings and aloha. Till next week.
Take care. Aloha.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
Your body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination. causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Now, do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.